Let me say good morning to the entire trial and this morning. Hope all is well with everyone. Welcome to another edition of To The Point. Today's Monday, and it's actually the 12th day of September 2022. Let me say good morning to our listeners this morning. Those of you via K105, good morning to whatever part of the island. I guess you know we cover the entire tri-island. So whatever part of the entire tri-island you're listening to us this morning, thank you and so much for being part of To The Point for today. Those of you via GBN TV, whether it's Channel 7, Channels 11, or Channels 20, let me say good morning to you also. Those of you via social media platform, good morning. Facebook, don't forget to share the live if you are viewing and listening there. Those of you via, of course, our YouTube channel, good morning to you also. I'm GT with you folks. I'll be with you this morning, and welcome to The Point. This morning, of course, we got some guests with us this morning. Of course, we will be talking to the Independent Caucus for Constitution Reform, and we have a number of them will be joining us this morning via, of course, our Zoom platform, and we have a little bit of a chit-chat and as it pertains to constitutional reform, the bits and pieces pertaining to that. So let me go over and let the individuals introduce themselves. Let me say good morning to you folks. Good morning. Good morning to everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. Well, I'm gonna let you.
Good morning.
I'm gonna let you folks individually introduce yourself to our viewing and listening audience this morning, and go right ahead. Who's kicking it off first in terms of introducing yourself?
Okay, I'll get going. I'm Beverly Sinclair, one of the executive members of the caucus, and here to represent and to talk about constitutional matters this morning.
All right. Who's going next?
Hi, good morning to you, GBN staff. Good morning to your viewing and listening audience. I am Cassandra Mitchell. I am also an executive member of the Independent Caucus for Constitution Reform.
All right. And finally.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning to your viewing and listening audience. My name is Wesley Simon. I am a member of the Independent Caucus for Constitutional Reform. Here to just add a little bit of, to add a youthful perspective on the on the Constitution.
All right. Well, welcome to all of you once again, and welcome to The Point for today, Monday. So once again, may I repeat the name for those of you who probably missed it? We have Beverly Sinclair. Is it Sincere? How I was getting your name? Get a mix it up. Sinclair. Let me get that right. Good morning to you.
No, it's Sinclair.
Sinclair. My bad.
Right.
Forgive me. I'm that bad with names, so forgive me.
That's all right.
Sinclair, good morning. We also have for you, that's Wesley Simon, of course, the gentleman spoke, and we also have Cassandra Mitchell with us this morning. Once again, all three of you, thank you so much for being part of To The Point for today. Now let's get it started. Let's first and foremost, I don't know who wants to kick it off this morning. Tell us about the Independence Caucus Reform. Tell us about this particular, of course, organization, what it stands for. I mean, Constitution, I guess most folks may understand that when it comes to the Constitution, so I guess you all will have a focus on the Constitution, more or less Grenada. But give us a little feedback, a little background about the organization as we move forward.
Okay, Cassandra, you want to take that?
Yes, I will. The Independent Caucus for Constitution Reform started approximately 3+ years ago. The concept of the organization or the grouping was created because over the years, when we NIDA had consultations with stakeholders, one of the things that we noticed is that many times it was always the same suspects in the room. And when, as you are aware, Grenada had 2 referenda where the people decided that they were going to leave the Constitution as is. And during the course of the consultations around the referenda processes, again, we met several times in different forums, on different platforms. And looking at some of the reports and some of the factors surrounding the results of the referenda, we decided that why not form a group of volunteers, citizens, who are concerned about constitutional reform, taking into concerns and into consideration as well that one of the factors that we believe contributed to the result of the referenda was the fact that as citizens, as Grenadians, many people were not aware as to the contents of the Constitution. So we decided to form this grouping. We are all volunteers. We wear other hats as well within the grouping. But the sole purpose of the ICCR is to create a platform and create avenues where we our citizens can educate together other citizens of Grenada about the contents of the Constitution, so that should there be a reform process in the future, that the majority of Grenadians would at least have an idea as to what the Constitution says.
All right. Certainly a comprehensive insight in terms of the format of the group and the reason why you folks have gotten started. Now, before we get into our topic of discussion this morning, we all know that there's always been that talk pertaining to the Constitution in Grenada, folks saying, it's time that we do away with what we have, get our own, and so forth like that. Is that the direction the group is looking at, or is it just the direction where the group is looking at in terms of making amendments that will make the Constitution more Grenadian-like? If it's okay with me saying that?
Well,
go ahead, Ben.
yes. The Constitution, as a group, we have looked at it, and there are things in it that definitely need to change. But we cannot have meaningful reform except people know and understand what is in the Constitution. And that is our aim, education, which will lead to reformation of the Constitution. Mm-hmm. It doesn't really work in all aspects for us in its current form, because we're in a different time, in a different era, when different things are happening, and a lot of what is there really doesn't work for us today. So there are things that need to change, but the ICCR would like to see people knowledgeable about the Constitution, so we as a nation can know what we want, and when it is time we make the changes accordingly so that it can work for us and for future generations. So that is our aim, GT.
All right. Thank you so much for, of course, explaining that part of it. Now, our bit of a topic this morning that we want to discuss, as we want to get into, in terms of the constitutional sections. And I want to start off with Section 23, the composition of Parliament. Now, give us some insights in terms from your organization pertaining to this particular section. For me, as I would say as an individual being Grenadian, let me look for a simple word of describing this. I'm a novice when it comes to the Constitution of Grenada. I practically know very little about it. So I'm intrigued by you folks this morning coming on and explaining this to me. And so let's kick it off with this. The Constitution Section 23, the composition of Parliament. Who would you like to explain that? And before we move on, I want to welcome Mr. Dave Ned. Good morning to you, sir. Welcome Dan for being part of us this morning. You may need to unmute your mic just a wee bit so we can let you, of course, introduce yourself. Although I did call your name already, but maybe you can introduce yourself. Somehow you're a bit low. All your bits is a bit low.
My name is David Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Better? Any better now?
Much better, 100%.
Okay. My name is David Smith.
Somehow we are losing you a bit, sir. I'm not sure why, but we're probably going to come back with your introduction after again. So who's going to, in terms of the question I just thrown out, who would like to go forward and explain that a wee bit? And I said, as for me being a novice in terms of the Constitution of Grenada, Constitution Section 23, composition of Parliament. Who'd like to explain that, especially for the viewing and listening audience out there who probably, maybe as me, know little or nothing pertaining to it? Who'd like to go ahead and explain that to us this morning?
So you want to read it first before we venture into explanations?
Go right ahead.
Sure thing. So, so 23 of Section 23 of the Constitution establishes Parliament, and it says, and I quote, "There shall be a Parliament of Grenada, which shall consist of Her Majesty, a Senate, and a House of Representatives." End quote.
All right.
Right. Okay, so when you look at what is here in the Constitution, it tells you what makes up the Parliament. The Parliament is not made up of just the lower house, which is the House of Representatives, or just the upper house, which is the Senate, but it includes, well, we don't have a Her Majesty anymore. It's now His Majesty, is the head of the Parliament. And it is interesting to note that the Constitution lists the composition of the Parliament in order of hierarchy. So the head is His Majesty, and then we have the Senate, and then we have the lower house, which is the House of Representatives. And Cassandra?
Yes, and if I may insert in here, we have seen public discourse about Her Majesty's representative being the head of the executive, and within the context of the Constitution, also the head of the legislature. But it is important to note that the House of Representatives includes not just the executive members who are the 9 cabinet ministers within the current context, but also the 6 elected representatives who comprises of Her Majesty's opposition. And then you have the 13 members of the Senate. So I want to emphasize that. So the executive is the cabinet ministers. Within our current context, it will be the 9 individuals composing of the cabinet. And then you also have the 6 elected representatives who are part of Her Majesty's opposition. They are part of the lower house of Parliament. And then you have the Senate, which includes the 13 selected individuals.
So you're practically saying now the composition of Section 23 composed of the all elected representatives. Am I correct by saying that? All elected representatives.
Yes, yes, you are correct.
All right, great. So we're moving on. I mean, I'm trying to pick up as you guys going on, because this is certainly an interesting, and I know there are lots of folks who are listening over there who have limited knowledge pertaining to the Constitution of Grenada. You know, the entire composition, how it's made up, and everything like that. And it's interesting to know a group of your natures coming together and trying to get to sensitize, if we look for a word to put in there, you know, individuals over there pertaining to the Constitution of Grenada, because we as individuals, sometimes we just pick up along the way in terms of what other folks may give in their own words, per se, or give in their own description pertaining to the Constitution. But there you say, you know, sometimes we just think that, you know, because this particular political organization may form the government, it doesn't mean that that's not the total composition of Parliament per se. That's what they're saying pertaining to this particular section that you're talking, Section 23.
Not at all, because Constitution does not recognize any political organization as such. It recognizes the elected members. So we have 15 constituencies in Grenada, and the 15 constituencies, each constituency will choose a representative to sit in the House. So it is not, as far as the Constitution is concerned, it's not incumbent on a political organization to choose representatives. It is the constituency which is supposed to decide who they want as a representative, and they will decide by ballot who will represent them in the lower house of representatives. That is really what the Constitution envisions, and not to say this organization or that organization is going to place anyone in a constituency.
All right. I certainly do understand. I understand that from that point of view there, because yes, we go through an election, an individual goes up to the public per se to be selected as a representative. That's from that part that I understand. But you say no, the Constitution does not recognize any political party per se. Whoever the political organization is, the Constitution period does not recognize that. It only recognizes the individual who is selected per se by the voting process. All right. Interesting there. So we're moving on. So there's another section of the Constitution that we can deem as being important that the public. Let's talk about Section 51. And who's like to go through that particular section for us this morning? Give us a little more detail in terms of bringing a clearer understanding, especially for viewers and listeners out there this morning who are listening to The Point. And as usual, of course, I know Wesley would like to probably read that particular section for us this morning, and of course, one of you will chime in terms of giving more a little bit of an explanation pertaining to it.
Sure thing. Okay, so Section 51, it speaks to the sessions of Parliament, right? And allow me to quote here. So Section 51, subsection 1 says, each session of Parliament shall be held at such place within Grenada and shall commence at such time as the Governor-General may by proclamation appoint. Subsection 2 talks about there shall be a session of Parliament once at least every year, so that a period of 6 months shall not intervene between the last sitting of Parliament in one session and the first sitting thereof in the next session.
Okay. So either Beverly or, of course, Cassandra, one of you two, or even Mr. Davison, as you say, of course, you mentioned earlier, would like to chime in on giving a bit of an explanation pertaining to this particular section that Wesley did speak about.
Mr. Ned, is your audio started? Yeah. Are you back?
Still not hearing him for some reason or the other. We are not hearing you at all, so I'm not sure if it's your audio device, if there's an issue per se. We know it. So Beverly or Cassandra, one of you two could chime in there while Mr. Ned still trying to get his stuff sorted out there in the meanwhile, attending to these.
All right. Well, I'll make a point and I'll leave Cassandra to expand on it. The Constitution says that the Governor General is the one who decides when the House of Parliament shall commence. That is the Governor General's responsibility to decide by proclamation when the House is supposed to convene. The General will also decide in consultation with the Prime Minister when the House is to be dissolved. And we need to understand there's a difference between the House being dissolved and being prorogated, because those are two acts which lie within the realm, within the responsibility and sole control of the Governor General. The Governor General is the only one who can declare that the Parliament is going to close for a season. Then the Governor General has the responsibility to declare when it will reopen as well. And there are instructions for when and how this is done, whether there is an election or there is not an election. Cassandra?
Before Cassandra kicks in with of course with her explanation, may I just ask this? You made reference to the of course when the House is dissolved, and you say, is it the other point that you made? Is it you said that there's a difference between when the House is dissolved, and that's going back to you, Beverly. I'm trying to remember the other point that you made. Parole. Give us a bit of an explanation pertaining to those two instances there.
Okay, in a nutshell, when the House is dissolved, it means that we no longer have representatives and we are heading towards a general election. When the House is prorogued, we are not necessarily heading into an election. So that's the major difference, I would say, between the two.
Okay, great.
If I may jump in real quickly here, right? Just to add to the explanation of prorogation. No, prorogation essentially brings a parliamentary session to an end. And a dissolution, it brings the parliament on a whole to an end, right? So remember during the last election cycle when the current opposition leader declared that the parliament stands dissolved, essentially what he was saying is that, and saying what Ms. Sinclair was saying, we had no more elected representatives and we had no more senators. And we are getting ready to go to election to elect a brand new parliament, which is currently the 11th parliament, right? So they had different things, different terminologies such as sessions, sittings, summoning, prorogation, dissolution. But every one of them essentially has their own basic meanings. So I just want to talk quickly on a session. A session is basically the period between the sitting of the House after it first meets and prorogation. So during a session, the government at the time will have a certain legislative agenda, right, that they would like to achieve during that session. Once that is achieved, a prorogation is done, and then the Governor General will prorogue Parliament, and then she will also, upon the consultation and advice with the Prime Minister, declare when the Parliament will be reopened and a new session has started. So currently, we are in the first session of the 11th Parliament of Brigida.
All right. So do you understand? I think that's where Cassandra will come in now with her bit of visibility, if she could certainly give us some more.
Yes, for me, I would just like to emphasize, according to the constitutional directives, if one reads section 51, subsections 1 and 2, it is the Governor General's responsibility to decide when the session of Parliament is going to be reopened and when Parliament is going to be dissolved. Again, if one looks at the constitutional provisions, Her Majesty's representative is the head of the executive, also the head of the legislature. And maybe in a proceeding program, we can go into more details as to why it is important and why the Constitution allows her these responsibilities. Because indeed, when Parliament is dissolved, remember, as Wesley just said, we no longer have elected representatives. So someone has to be in charge. So it will be the Governor General within the period of the dissolution and the election of a new Parliament. So I want to emphasize that, because I've heard erroneous statements being made that contradicts the constitutional directives, which says that a prime minister is the head of state. No, the Constitution clearly states that it is Her Majesty's representative who is the head of the executive, also the head of the legislature.
If I could chip in here and if I'm to understand what you're just saying. So when we had the dissolution of Parliament, which preceded the last election, and the Parliament was prorogued, and you are now saying now that the Governor General should have been the one in charge. And speaking in regular terms, the Governor General should have been the individual who's in charge of the country at that time, of this country per se at this time.
I am not saying it. I'm saying what the Constitution says.
I know you're saying, but I'm just trying to understand it going along that way, because we were still hearing, well, it's the individual who was selected as Prime Minister at the time is the one still that runs the country per se. Because if Parliament is dissolved, we no longer is it to say that we no longer have a government? Am I right? Can say that?
No, we no longer have a parliament. We have a government. Remember, there are other arms of government. So the other arms of government continues to operate. For instance, the public service continues to operate even without elected officials, because you have, according to the constitutional directives, permanent secretaries who are responsible for their ministries. So there are other arms of government, the judiciary, which continues to operate through the chief of police and magistrates and the court. But we no longer have a parliament until the people elect new representatives.
Okay, let me ask this final question before we move on to another. What is the changes that your organization or your group per se, the Independent Caucus for Constitutional Reform, like to see pertaining to when a situation of that occurs? What does your organization like to see, or what changes you would like to see come along with that?
Well,
I don't think, Bev, if you allow me, that the caucus, I say this respectfully, decides what is done. Remember that in order to have reform, we need a 2/3 majority vote of the individuals going out to decide what change within the Constitution. Our responsibility is not to decide or to come to the people to say what we, the ICCR, want change. All we are doing is just using platforms to raise awareness on what the Constitution says, and the ultimate decision lies in the hands of the people.
All right. All right. Interesting there. We due for a first break. We will certainly be coming back and have more conversation pertaining. Let's take our break and we're coming right back with much more. It's To The Point for today, Monday, September the 12th. We're coming right back. Don't touch your dial.
As GBN brings you coverage of this year's Hero CPL, there will be some adjustments to our programming lineup. On Tuesday 13th and Wednesday 14th September 2022, transitions will be at 5:05 p.m. GBN TV News will be at 6 p.m. and repeated right after the CPL match. Transitions will be rebroadcast after the GBN News repeat. GBN, with you anywhere and everywhere with sports coverage.
This could be out. Brilliant catch. What a stunning catch.
The biggest party in sports, the Caribbean Premier League, is back and live on GBN television. Capture the energy, excitement, and euphoria of the beloved game. 34 matches, 6 teams, only one to be crowned champion. The action starts August 31st and runs until September 30th. Live on GBN television and K105.5 and 105.9. It's no carnival, but you will enjoy the mass.
And you're kidding me! You are kidding me!
GBN's broadcast of the Hero CPL is made possible by Republic Bank. We're the one for you. Habats, National Lotteries Authority, Demerara Mutual Life, Grenlec, Kennish Trucking, Webisco and Bermudas, Consumers Guarantee Insurance, and Had-On Plus.
Mr. mentioned at the wing high, then you have things like Manumos, Force Combat, you know? We have the low power there.
When you push it, it is kind of like you say, man, and it's just different.
Welcome back to our listeners and viewers this morning. It's To The Point for today, Monday, the 12th. Cheat with you this morning, of course, your host. And this morning, we do have, of course, some panelists with us this morning. They are representing, of course, the... They are representing the Independent Caucus for Constitution Reform, and we have, of course, Mr. Ned Davis or Mr. Davison Ned. Let me get his name right. You know me and my names, Mr. Davison Ned with us this morning, and we didn't get, of course, to chat with him during the intro. Of course, he was having a bit of an audio issue, so let me have him, of course, introduce himself to the viewing and listening audience once again. Mr. Ned, good morning.
Here again, and it's a pleasure to be here with you this morning. For this opportunity that we can have a conversation with the general public on matters that affect all across the board. The Constitution is something central to
we are still having that bit of an audio issue with you, sir. I'm not sure for whatever reason or reasons. We're still having that audio issue with you. I'm not sure what's the problem. Doesn't seem to be coming from my end of things, so I'm not sure what could be done at this time.
I don't know.
All right. So we moving on, because we are already moving down to the first half of the hour already. It's 30 minutes after the 9 o'clock hour this morning. So we do have some more information we would like to talk to chit-chat about this morning. Let's talk about the executive authority when it comes to the Constitution. So we talk in section 57 of the executive authority. Who would like to chime in on this particular section per se and share some more more information. I'm not sure as Wesley like to take the lead with it in terms of giving a description of the or speaking of or giving a read per se from the Constitution about the particular section, and then we do have Beverly or Cassandra chiming in and give us. Hope Mr. Ned Audio pops in so he can also share some ideas with us also. Go right ahead, Wesley, and share the particular section 57 in terms of the executive authority, and we move on.
Okay, thank you. So we're looking at chapter 4, section 57 of the Constitution. And section 57 speaks about the exercise of the executive authority of Grenada. Now allow me to quote section 57, subsection 1 says, "The executive authority of Grenada is vested in Her Majesty." Well, in this case, it will be His Majesty. Right? Subsection 2, subject to the provisions of this Constitution, the executive authority of Grenada may be exercised on behalf of Her Majesty by the Governor General, either directly or through officers subordinate to him. Subsection 3 says, "Nothing in this section shall prevent Parliament from conferring functions on persons or authorities other than the Governor General."
Okay, all right. Beverly or Cassandra, anyone of you two want to go over, of course, a bit of a description on that particular section, or put some more thought into it?
Yes, it is telling us that the Governor General has executive authority over Grenada. All executive authority is vested in her. The Constitution refers to the Governor General in the masculine, it says him, but right now we know that our Governor General is a her. So executive authority is vested in her, which means that she is at the head of all decision making in the country. And here it says, "Nothing in this section shall prevent Parliament from conferring functions on persons or authorities other than the Governor General." It simply means that the Parliament does not have the authority to dictate to the Governor General beyond what is in the Constitution. The Constitution tells when she is to consult and when she is to act in her own deliberate judgment. So outside of what is her duties and responsibilities that are given to her in the Parliament cannot confer any other duties and responsibilities on her, but it is free, it being the Parliament is free to confer duties and responsibilities on other persons to take care of the business of the country as it sees fit.
Okay, certainly do understand that. Cassandra, that's where you chip in here now, and of course, give me another explanation. I do have a question I would like to ask, but I would listen to your explanation first.
Yes, just supporting what Bev just said, looking at the constitutional provision, the emphasis on the Governor General, His Majesty's representative, is going to get we're going to get used to it. Being in charge of the executive authority. It has been said over the past few years, decades, that her role is ceremonial. As Bev indicated, the Constitution gives directives. It says when she, within the current construct, consults, when she's advised, who advises her, and the Constitution also allows her to act in her own deliberate judgment.
All right. I said I listened to what you said pertaining to this, and I asked a question, and I hope one of you could probably answer it for me. No, when there's a decision that has to be made from the Parliament point of view, which involves, let's say, there's going to be a holiday or something of the sort, are you saying that the only person who can actually direct that to happen is the Governor General, per se, being the one making that executive, having that executive authority?
Well, in terms of holidays, right, there is legislation guiding that process in terms of declaring a holiday. And that legislation clearly gives that authority to the Governor General, right? So when it comes to those types of actions to be taken in the state of Grenada, the Governor General is the one who has to make that decision to really make it be in effect, per se.
Okay, understandable there. Understandable.
And if I may chime in, that legislation is called the Bank Holidays Act.
Yeah.
And it is interesting that you brought that up because we recently had a declaration, I use the term loosely, of a holiday on June 24th, 2022, the day after the general election. The legislation, according to what Wesley just said, and according to the legislation itself, gives that authority to the Governor General, who shall by proclamation declare a holiday, and that declaration shall now be gazetted. It is interesting for us as the caucus that it is now September 12th, and we have never seen a gazetted declaration making June 24, 2022 a public holiday according to law.
Interesting there. So you're suggesting there now that when we had the last election, and of course the winner of the election was declared per se, and we were told that there's going to be a holiday. That saying per se of getting that holiday should have been made by the Governor General. She's the one that should have declared that they should be, not, of course, the leader of the political organization per se. Am I right by saying that?
Yes, I am not saying it. I am reading what the law says, and it says in subsection 7 that it shall be lawful for the Governor General from time to time by proclamation, which means a public announcement in the Gazette, which means it also has to be gazetted, to appoint a special day or maybe even a part of the day as a public holiday. Like I said, I maybe it was gazetted, but we haven't seen it.
Why is it so? Why is that so per se? Why is that still has not happened per se?
Well, I'll leave that question open for the Office of the Governor General.
Yes,
all right. I was just trying to tickle your fancy there just a wee bit anyway. So we're moving on this morning. No, there are various sections of the Constitution that manages this country per se, and because we have a constitution that we will go by. No one has the right to do him or her has the right to do as they wishes, especially when it comes to the governance of this country. So let's talk about Section 58, the appointment of the Prime Minister and other ministers. Wesley, as usual, I'd like to let you read that part of the Constitution, and of course we get an explanation from both Beverly and Cassandra. Go right ahead.
Sure thing. Well, Section 58 is a bit of a long one. So I guess I will take it subsection by subsection and where necessary, that my other colleagues can jump in and give the clarifications or contributions. So I'll start here. Section 58 speaks to the ministers. Subsection 58, subsection 1 says, there shall be a Prime Minister of Grenada who shall be appointed by the Governor General. Pretty straightforward. Subsection 2. Whenever the Governor General has occasion to appoint a Prime Minister, he shall appoint a member of the House of Representatives who appears to him likely to command the support of the majority of the members of the House. I will continue. Subsection 3 goes on to say, there shall be, in addition to the office of the Prime Minister, such other offices of minister as may be established by Parliament or, subject to the provisions of any law enacted by Parliament, by the Governor General, acting in accordance with the advice of the Prime Minister. Subsection 4 goes on to say, appointments of the office of minister other than the office of Prime Minister shall be made by the Governor General acting in accordance with the advice of the Prime Minister from among the senators and the members of the House of Representatives. Subsection 5. If occasion arises from making an appointment to the office of Prime Minister or any other minister while Parliament is dissolved, then notwithstanding any provisions of this section, a person who was a member of the House of Representatives immediately before dissolution may be appointed as Prime Minister or any other minister, and a person who was a senator immediately before the dissolution may be appointed as any minister other than Prime Minister. So I'll stop here.
We can, right, that's a good place to stop because
As you said, it's pretty lengthy.
Yes, it's lengthy, and subsection 6 kind of changes the discussion. So the Constitution says Grenada must have a Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is appointed by the Governor General. The Prime Minister is selected by the Governor General. We do not have a system under our Constitution where we vote for a Prime Minister. We vote for representatives, and from among the representatives that are elected, the Governor General will choose as Prime Minister the person that she sees will control the majority of the support of the elected representatives. So the Governor General is vested with the responsibility of deciding who is appointed as Prime Minister. See, because I'll say it again, we do not elect Prime Ministers. And we mentioned it before earlier in the discussion that the Constitution does not recognize political parties. So there is nothing to say that the head of any political party or political organization has to be the Prime Minister. It is the Governor General who determines by her own deliberation that this person seems the person who will get majority support from the House and appoint that person as Prime Minister. And subsection 5 here is a very, very important subsection to note in section 58, because it states that when Parliament is dissolved, if there is occasion and if there is need for a Prime Minister, only persons who were members of the House before it was dissolved who can be appointed Prime Minister. So this tells us how important our Parliament is and the responsibilities that lie within Parliament and within the Governor General. And these are things written in the Constitution that the caucus really believe we need to give more attention to these matters and not allow ourselves to be operating ultra vires or without authority.
All right. Now, before Cassandra chips in here, I would like to ask this question. It is sort of ticklish in terms of that last section that you speak about, where it says that only someone who has been part of who's before Parliament was prorogued or per se could be appointed.
No, before it dissolved.
Before it dissolved.
Right.
Yes, let me get that in right. Before it dissolved, can be selected. Can you kind of explain that a little bit more for me, please?
If there is occasion, okay, let's say Parliament is dissolved and there is something happens which is really, really serious, and the Prime Minister and the Parliament is needed to deal with that issue, and the Governor General has reason to summon the Parliament to get together. It is all persons, representatives who were there before Parliament was dissolved that can be summoned, because a new Parliament would not have started as yet.
Okay.
So the newly elected representatives, although elected, could not be summoned because they are elected to be members of the House, but they are not yet members because there is no Parliament, it's dissolved. So if we have some emergency or anything that needs Parliament at the time, the Governor General would have to summon the old parliamentarians, those who were there before, to deal with whatever situation is happening at the time. And that's why the Constitution makes it clear, if occasion arises for making an appointment to the office of Prime Minister or any other minister while Parliament is dissolved. So this is a provision for when Parliament is dissolved. And we read in the Constitution, and we pointed out earlier, that when Parliament is dissolved, we do not have any representatives. There is a vacancy. There are vacancies that need to be filled, and the lower house is filled by election, and the upper house is filled by selection.
Okay. Now, Cassandra, we, of course, I guess you have listened to Wesley giving a reading the Constitution and the various sections are parts of it. What's your take on Section 58? If you could expand on it a wee bit for us as we listen to you here.
Yes, again, supporting the constitutional directives and the subsections under subsection 50, under section 58, the importance of our parliament. That section ties into recent public concerns about when the parliament, the 11th session of parliament, was going to be opened. Because, as the Constitution directs, the Prime Minister, one, is chosen from among the members of the House. And we continue to emphasize that the Constitution does not recognize political organizations. So there were questions, in the general public about when is Parliament going to be open. The caucus had several concerns. We have written to the Office of the Governor General prior to today, asking about and drawing reference to the constitutional directives that a Prime Minister is selected by the Governor General from among the members of the House, not the most popular person from a political organization. Mm-hmm. It is the person who the Governor General believes commands the respect of the majority of the members of the House. Okay. So we had asked questions about whether or not that constitutional directive was followed. If you look at Section 58, subsection 3, which gives directives that there shall be, in addition to the office of Prime Minister, other offices. So we have seen portfolios given to elected individuals, and there is a new ministry that was created by the cabinet. I'm saying the cabinet because Parliament was not yet open by the 9 elected individuals. They have created a new ministry, but that ministry needs to be supported by law. And again, the law must be consistent with the Constitution.
Yes.
So if the Constitution allows for the creation of a new ministry, but that new ministry must be properly constituted. Again, as a small grouping, we have raised this concern with the Governor General, noting obviously her responsibility as the head of the executive, as well as the head of the legislature, asking about whether or not this new ministry has been properly constituted. And again, you're just reading what the Constitutional directs. It is not us saying it. We have drawn reference to the constitutional provision, and we have asked the question, is this new ministry properly constituted?
All right. Certainly understand a whole lot where you're coming from, because you are stating right now that from your organization perspective, for which you go by in terms of following the Constitution of Grenada, and I'm assuming you folks have inside knowledge of it. Of course, you have read it and you have come to an understanding of it. So you say lots of the activities that may have taken place in terms of the procedures that as you said, where we maybe cabinet decision and so forth. Are you saying that it probably was not done properly? In just making a generalized statement per se?
Well, we are just following what the Constitution directs. And again, in our correspondence with the Office of the Governor General, we have drawn a reference to the constitutional provisions, and we have asked the question whether or not constitutional directives were followed. Remember, when elected officials are sworn in, they swear in part to honor, uphold, and preserve the Constitution of Grenada, not the political agenda, not the manifesto of the political organization, the Constitution. And we as citizens, we are concerned because one of the basis upon which the Constitution was written, if one reads the preamble, is a protection of fundamental rights and freedom, coming from an associated state, coming from a history of enslavement. We are now, through this document, being given fundamental rights and freedoms. And we have to ensure, as citizens, that our elected officials who swear to honor, uphold, and preserve this Constitution absolutely do so. It is also important to inject into the conversation that while we have a Governor General who is a representative of His Majesty, the Governor General, the individual in the position, cannot go outside, cannot make decisions outside of the constitutional provisions. It is important to inject that. So while, yes, I've heard the discussions about pledging allegiance to the king, the king, that individual cannot make any decision that goes outside the constitutional provision.
Okay. Certainly an interesting conversation here this morning, and I per se, one listening, as I said, I'm a novice in terms of the provisions of the Constitution and stuff like that, and I'm certainly learning a whole lot. We will take a break within this segment, come back. We may invite a couple of calls from our listeners and viewers this morning. They may want to chime in terms of asking questions. Certainly hope you folks be able to answer the question that they may come. We're going to take a short break, and we're coming right back. We'll be certainly back with you folks shortly. It's To The Point here on K105 and the GBN TV. We'll be coming back.
Affordable quality.
This could be out. Brilliant catch. What a stunning catch.
The biggest party in sport.
So we say welcome back to our listeners and viewers this morning. Just around 6 minutes or so left on the program this morning here on the K105 and the GBN TV To The Point. And of course, as mentioned this morning, we have our guests this morning. They are the Independent Caucus for Constitution Reform. We've been talking of various sections of the Constitution this morning. We did talk about the Constitution, Section 23. We spoke about Section 51, 57, and the final section we spoke about a while ago was Section 58. And we're inviting your phone calls 435-2041, 435-2041. Just a couple of minutes left, so I will ask you callers to, of course, keep your comments and a bit short. Let's go to the phone line. Caller, good morning and how are you?
Yes, Mr. Telesford, good morning. We are usually to the point. Greetings to the brothers and sisters there. You know, Mr. Telesford, I'm so happy that this subject matter has raised its head now at the point in time when Elizabeth Regina has passed away. Many of the things coming out of the United Kingdom relative to the realms and colonies and dominions of the British Empire and the monarchy are being exposed. Grenada has a phenomenal situation to deal with. I hear the young men and women talk about what has happened in Grenada and what continues to happen even without authority of the so-called Constitution. Therefore, I ask the question, where can I find a copy of the Constitution Act of Grenada, ladies and gentlemen? I'll be grateful. And I should ask this question also. If it is in effect necessary to operate a country without a constitutional act, can you tell me where the authority, that legitimacy comes from? Thank you very much. Have a nice day, will you?
All right, thank you very, very much, caller. I'm not sure which one of you would like to chime in and answering the caller's questions.
I could take the last part of the question first. Operating without a constitution. I believe there are about 5 countries in the world that do not have written constitutions, but certainly their system of governance is different from ours. So they are able to manage their country and to do what they do without a written constitution because of their system and how they operate. And interestingly, the UK is one of the countries that do not have a written constitution. So it can be done, it just depends on governance which the country uses, whether or not they do have a written constitution in place.
Okay. And the callers.
Okay, the first part.
So you can get the written copy of the Constitution. You can purchase them at the Treasury Sub Office at the Botanical Gardens. You can also access online copies. I believe the cost should be about $30. Last time I purchased mine, that's how much I paid. And there are soft copy versions of the Constitution online. You can find same on the government official website, as well as just typing in, searching the Constitution Order of Grenada, and you will have a full copy of the provisions of the Constitution.
All right, we do have another caller. Let's take another caller. Caller, good morning, and how are you?
Good morning, GT. Are you hearing me clearly?
We're hearing you clearly. Go right ahead.
Okay, good morning to you and your esteemed guest. I think sometimes we major in minor and so on, because the last caller made an important question about the evidence of the legitimacy of the whole arrangement, governance arrangement here. And I think we have tried to avoid that because it's fundamental. Also, I would even add, the second attempt at democracy in Grenada, to me, was flawed because we had what I call treasonous people assembling in our Union Island, being assembled by a foreign power and put together to come and do the election, even the manipulation prior to the election where the supervisor election was fired 2 weeks before. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have this kind of conversation. We should, very much, because there are a lot of things that are not right. And to me, the only thing I'm hearing is that we want the current group of people to be absolutely perfect. And I mean, I don't think that is fair because there's something called Oslo Convention. In 1995, for instance, the Prime Minister, based on what the young lady is saying, I have to be careful. The person who became Prime Minister subsequently, before even consulting the dead Governor General, declared a holiday. This is unlike what the new guy said. I heard this speech. He said, I'll be advising the Governor General that tomorrow will be to declare tomorrow the holiday. Maybe that wasn't proper, but to me was an improvement over what happened in 95. There's a lot of things that have not been done in this place. I mean, and we need to, maybe that's a good time for us, all of us, to come together and get this thing right. Things are not right. A lot of things are not functional in this place. In fact, and finally, we'll say we had 15 years of wasted thing in Grenada, where you had a parliament of 15 people one side, whereas parliament is meant to be bicameral. I mean, where you have two sides debating and so on. There was no debate in parliament for 15 years in the history of Grenada. I mean, we condemned the revolution for no democracy and so on, but there was no democracy for these 15 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much there, caller, for your contribution this morning. And we're getting straight up to the top of the hour. It's already 10 a.m. And I would like to ask our guest for some final comments before we wrap the program up this morning. I know which one would like to make some final comments pertaining to all that we have discussed this morning. Some final comments before we take a wrap for today's program.
Certainly, I will close by saying, encouraging all citizens to get a copy of the Constitution, because the Constitution, it belongs to you. It belongs to the public. It is in force for your benefit, and you need to get get the document. There are persons out there who think the Constitution should only be discussed by lawyers or professors or people that they claim are trained in constitutional matters. But the Constitution belongs to you. So you need to learn to understand it for yourself so that when there is discussion on the Constitution, you know what is being said. And if and when the discussion comes up again for referendum, if it happens in our lifetime again, then you can be knowledgeable and you can know what changes need to be made so that you can make a choice and make some kind of contribution towards the governance of the country and towards the future when the Constitution will more than likely be changed. Thank you very much for hosting us this morning.
You're certainly welcome. Any closing comments from you, Cassandra or Wesley?
If I may, I would just like to support Bev's point. We do not need lawyers or experts, and I use the word loosely, to discuss the Constitution. The reason we the people, are the ultimate authority. It is the said experts who have to come to us, the people, to change it. We own the Constitution. When the Constitution order was adopted, and I use the word loosely, taking into concerns Citizen Rollo's comments, it was before my time. But it's important to inject right here that the people, it was brought to the people to change on 2 occasions. And the people decided, for whatever reasons, because obviously there were factors involved, to leave the Constitution as is at that time. So I believe, in my humble opinion, that on both occasions, the people legitimized the Constitution. This is not an attempt to get perfection from the current administration. Like I indicated at the start of the discussion, we as activists, advocates, concerned citizens, we have been involved in the process in consultations for years. So this is not us picking up in June 2022. Many of us have been involved decades in advocacy and activism and trying to hold governments accountable. And the last caller's point about having a parliament that had a majority seat, it was the people's decision. There's nothing we could have done in the outcome. What we did, many of us within the caucus, even within the concept of the caucus and wearing other hats, we have advocated on several issues that the past administration decisions that they have made. This is not our first rodeo. This is not an attempt to criticize the current administration. This is just an attempt to ensure that our fundamental rights and freedoms as citizens aren't trampled upon by this administration, administrations to come, and the past ones. We have done it and we continue to do it. So thank you again for this opportunity, and we hope that we will get a continued avenue to just come and have a discussion around the Constitution.
All right. Wesley, you do have any closing comments this morning?
Yes, thank you. So I just want to thank everybody for all your viewing and listening audience. And I'd like to encourage all of us to go get a constitution. If you don't have one, read your constitution, know your constitution. It is the people's document. This is a contract that we as a people have between ourselves and our institutions, right? And we have a civic responsibility to ensure that those that we choose, right? We have that freedom of choice, those that we choose to put in positions of authority, that our arrangement, our agreement as laid out in the Constitution is not abused, right? And so I'd like to encourage everybody once again to get their Constitution. This is not about bashing anybody. This is just to ensure that the rule of law is respected and followed, right? No one is above it, no institution, no person. And what is here is to protect everybody, all and sundry at the end of the day. So once again, I want to encourage everybody read your constitution, know your constitution, and let's become active citizens and make sure that what we have in place is something that truly reflects us as a people and where we want to see our country to go. Thank you.
All right, I want to thank you all once again, you folks, for popping in this morning and sharing the information that you did this morning. Certainly fruitful information, and I know for sure the viewing and listening audience of did gain a lot. I certainly hope that we could arrange another section where we can come back and talk about other sections of the Constitution that will certainly be beneficial. That would raise even more concerns to our viewing and listening audience of there. Once again, I want to thank you for being on To The Point this morning. Have a blessed day, one and all. All right. Hey, folks, so we take a wrap for To The Point for today. Join me again tomorrow morning. We'll have another program for you here on GBN TV and also on K105. And I say GT, please goes out. And my apology for the Facebook guests, of course, viewers and listeners of it. I know I didn't get your comments in this morning, and I'm seeing loads of you chimed in this morning with your comments. Didn't get a chance to throw it out to, of course, our guests. Certainly hope we could do that the next time around. Until then, have yourself a great day. That's what we say goodbye for To The Point for today.